Hi, viewers around the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your local time. You're welcome to my climate story with Tosin. And today we have very special, extremely special guests. The leadership team of the Climate Reality Project, Newark Delaware chapter. They're here to share their stories and to get you inspired. And so let me start by asking Malika, can you introduce us? What do you do at your chapter?
So the Climate Reality Newark Delaware chapter was founded last year, 2019, after I attended the Climate Reality training in Atlanta. Janet is one of my co-chairs of the chapter, and we founded it off one simple mission, wanting to educate people across the world on how to combat climate change and be successful in doing so. So that is our core mission of the chapter. Today, I have esteemed leaders from the chapter who are really involved in our community and all of the chapter efforts. Mashika is our social media expert. Carissa is the secretary. Jim S. helps with our Rock the Vote campaign. And Jim G is one of our leaders that helps on our water campaign, which he will get into when he does his little spill of it. But together, we are one strong family, one strong army, teaching people how to solve one major crisis that we all have in common, which is climate change.
Thank you so much. So let me start with Jim X. Uh, can you describe, in your context, growing up, what part of nature do you feel is lost, or you feel you're worried about that you may not be able to pass on to your descendants?
Where I am, I'm actually in Pennsylvania, which is just north in the very southern part of Pennsylvania, and it's a farming area. And even though you'd think that would be very good air and good water, it's not because of the pollution from the farming. The Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, even though it's Amish country and is considered to be this great rural area, is designated its own climate disaster zone by Pennsylvania because our air and water are so bad. So for me, I focus on those, and I really I try and push those two issues because I think they're relatable, and I do it for my grandchildren.
Hmm. Thank you. But at what point did you feel like things are changing and it was important to act?
Well, I mean, we see especially in young children here, we're seeing spikes in asthma from the nitrous oxide, which is coming from the fertilizer on the farm fields. Um, and we're seeing that also run off into the waters and have pollution in our waters. So we're setting up our young children and grandchildren for a life that is not going to be very good. I mean, it's not just the temperature that's a problem. It's that's going to be bad enough, but it's also they're not going to have clean air or clean water, and they're going to have to fight this temperature problem. And between all of those merging, this is just looking more and more like it's going to be a disaster by 2050. So for me, the urgency is the thing that we need to push. I mean, people need to realize these things are happening now. And just because there's so much other news, it's easy to get pushed out, especially with the presidential election. It's easy for climate to get pushed out of the conversation, and we need to keep inserting it back in there because no matter what happens, climate change doesn't care. It's going to keep going. So that's I think the urgency is the main thing right now, is to try and get out there and talk about it.
Wow, awesome. Thank you. Jim G, can I come to you?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. I'm wondering for you, some people notice changing climates. They notice in the weather, maybe in the reduced snow, and loss of lake. So for you, where does those things emerge for you in your own context?
Boy, that's a good question. So you came to the two white hairs first, so we can give more of a historical perspective on this. So yes, growing up in the 60s as a teenager, well, okay, I would go for a hiking trip, and I would hike up a mountainside. I would see no trash. I would get up top, and I'd have a sandwich with me, and I'd stop, and I would take my canteen, and I would dip water out of the stream and drink it. No problems, no worries. I would drink water all day long out of the streams and the ponds. If we wanted fish in the evening before we set up camp, we'd catch some fish and we'd have it for dinner. No one would think that that's not a good thing. I grew up in Pennsylvania. I'm actually near where the other gym is. We had a lot of snow in the winter times. A lot of snow. As kids, we loved it because we dug pits and jumped in it and made snowmen and all those good things. And it was hot in the summer, but it wasn't unbearable. Over time, and I've always been about nature, that's changed and shifted dramatically. Now, and I worry about my grandkids like Jim does. I don't want to leave them such a mess. Now, if I go hiking, I have to take a bag with me to collect the trash. There's too many thoughtless people out there hiking who just don't seem to care, seem to think it's their right to do whatever they feel like. When I'm out there, I have to make sure I carry enough water with me, safe water, which gets harder to find all the time. I wouldn't think of drinking water out of a stream because I know what would happen. And I would have a very disastrous time with my gut for days. So I wouldn't think about it. Catching fish for dinner? I doubt it. Don't know what's in those streams. I better carry in my food. The birds which were everywhere as a kid, everywhere. I don't hear near as many. I have to go looking for the birds. To me, those things highlight, as I look back and I look forward, of what we're doing. And Jim touched on it, I think, beautifully. The election process takes away from it. Other issues, we have a pandemic going on that takes away from it. But quite literally, none of those things are going to matter if we don't get a realistic handle on climate change. And so far, we're not. Globally, political leaders have pretty much, there's a few exceptions, ignored it because they make their money based on the old fossil fuel industries. We need to really start shifting this. We need to realize we're talking about an existential threat that threatens all of us. I don't care what color we are. I don't care what religion. I don't care where we live. This has us all at threat. Yet at the same time, when we were chatting before the show, and I think Jim made a beautiful point, we have to realize there's hope. There's a lot of hope. Some of us, when we were young, stood up and spoke. We had no one behind us, Tosin. I heard you. Nobody to support us. We were loudmouth, long hair, hippie freaks. Shut up, sit down, do what the system tells you. Not now. I personally, and I know many my age, are supporting the young people. It's one reason I'm here in this group. We have to stand behind those of you who are young. We know what it's like to have nobody behind you. We do have the knowledge we've acquired. We do have all the mistakes we made. And those, I think, are helpful. And so I think if we stand together and hold hands, united globally, we'll make all the changes. Our grandkids will be smiling. Our grandkids down the road will look back and thank us. Thank you, grandfather. Thank you, grandmother. And not say, damn you, grandmother. Damn you, grandfather. That's where we're going, I think.
Wow. Thank you so much. That's quite inspiring. Are you a preacher?
Am I a preacher?
Yes.
Boy, that's a... How long's this show? I actually am. I am a minister.
Wow.
I am more a spiritual leader. I walk a Native American path and a path of other indigenous people. But because in some states, in order to do what I do, I have to be a registered minister, I'm also that. To me, spiritual is spiritual. It doesn't matter what. Again, what religion, what. I pray to my God, and everybody is welcome to do whatever they wish.
Thank you so much, Jim G. I was warned by your statement. Thank you. So, Machika, can I come to you? Why are you doing this work? Why are you in the climate or environmental restoration space?
I have no other choice. I mean, to be honest, I think everyone, this entire group, you have no other choice. It's obvious. I mean, you would be walking blind purposefully if you don't do it. I mean, I grew up, I'm a Baltimore native, so I grew up in Baltimore and Maryland, and you literally see the impact of pollution as a Baltimore native. Even though I didn't live in Baltimore City, I lived on the outskirts of Baltimore City. My family is, we lived about just a few streets away from Baltimore City. My dad is from a small town in Virginia. And so we did a lot of road trips visiting his family, and we saw the changes that happened in that equestrian town, where they decided that they, instead of allowing that equestrian town to stay equestrian, they decided they wanted to develop. So the developers paid a family off to build on that community. So it was fine to just have a regular mom and pop shop with a local gas station, but it wasn't enough. They just decided that they wanted to build upon that community and buy land and shopping centers, and so you have towns that is overpopulated and overdeveloped, and it's not necessary. And the issue now that they have is that they have a lot of flooding and runoff during these times because they built, but they didn't learn the land. So when it rains, they have flooding. So there's constant construction, constant rebuilding and fixing, and highway issues and things. So it's just a mess, where if they would have kept the town the way that it was about 15, 18 years ago, it was just fine. The ecosystem was working the way that it should. So, I mean, you see these things consistently happening. In my 20s, I decided to move to different cities and towns, 20 minutes from Miami, then I lived about in the DMV area, those places, and because the same story, moving mom and pop shops out. These mom and pop areas, they lose their business, and then the developing companies, they move in, and people have to find a way to live their life. And so it looks good. Gentrification looks good. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but what happens is that they don't learn the land, or they develop too fast, and we have these issues. And then it takes us to try to educate. And so you're just on and on and on. You're just the cycles continuing. So that's why we're here.
Wow. Interesting work. But has it been super comfortable doing this? What are some of the pushback that's come at you personally?
Me? I don't like public speaking. That's the pushback is me. I'm my own issues.
Wow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Malika knows this. I mean, we have our own personal stories. I mean, we have very similar walks. It's so funny because when she's talking about, I did rock the boat, I'm like, I did a lot of these things. I mean, hey, she's Miss Elite Delaware, and I was just like, oh no, I'll do everything social media. And then she's like, can you do this? I'm like, I'll think about it. Let Let me go into my quiet space and really think about this. Oh, it's a group thing? I'll do group. I'll post. No, I need you to speak. No, we're not doing that.
Thank you. Oh, that's
You're
welcome. Can I come to you, Carissa? Hi.
Hi. So I just put it in the chat too. Oh, I was just gonna say Mashika did a great job speaking, and I think she's doing great. So go ahead, Tosin.
Okay, great. So Carissa, what brought you here?
Okay, so Malika brought me here, and our chapter brought me here. I actually currently live in Rhode Island because I was living in Delaware when I joined the chapter, and then due to the pandemic and my job changing, I came back home. But I'm really excited to still be involved because it's a great team and the work we're doing. And I was an active member, I mean still are, but physically active when we were able to get out and do stuff into the communities and just outreach. I was trained as a climate reality leader last summer in Minneapolis, and I've always been really interested on like the recycling and sustainability side. So I know a lot of people mentioned growing up in nature and their love for nature, which I obviously I also enjoy. But I think for me, one of the big things, especially growing up in an urban area, like we have access to our beaches and our nature. And I think as I've gotten older, my respect and kind of like knowledge has grown a lot as well. And that's kind of shifting my gear and interests. But just, one thing I really focused on was always in my schools, like so much waste and like not seeing people sorting their recyclables or just not caring or just also not knowing and thinking that like recycling is not real. And that's a whole other wormhole that like I'm starting to learn more about that too. But I think it's kind of switched to a more minimalist and less consumerism and just how we can be sustainable in institutions or in our own cities. So that's kind of where my specific interests are. Like I said, in high school, really pushed for like stronger recycling programs in our cafeteria. And that was something that I was able to do outreach directly with my peers because it was a close enough and small enough school that I did feel like I had a great place to make an impact. I was involved in my environmental club in college, which I actually went to Loyola University in Maryland. So I know Mashika mentioned the DMV area in Baltimore City. So that always has a small place in my heart. And just, I graduated from college a few years ago. So this is my way to continue being involved and doing that work. And because in college, I think it was kind of like a rough awakening back into society that, harder to find smaller groups who are really passionate about the same things as you. So I definitely found that with Climate Reality and Malika and Jim and Mashika. So, and some of our other members who couldn't attend today. So I think it's really important. And we've talked about this in some of our own meetings for like your own mental health and well-being to have that connection, but then also just like the environment is a place of refuge for people and being out, and we don't want to damage it. Yeah, and Jim's going with his relaxing music and just having a place to be mindful and meditate. And I think that's really important. And I don't have my own kids yet or grandkids and I think that's something that older generations are thinking about the kids that they already have, but then even millennials and younger generations are thinking if they even want to have kids and bring it into something like this. So that's just there's a lot of environmental justice going on and sustainability. So kind of any way we can get involved, but also following what we truly like, where we want to make the most impact. So
wow, thank you so much.
That's a lot, but yeah.
That brings me to my next question for you. Just like with Malika too, I try to go out every Saturday to clean up my environment. I paid payback Saturday, as in my own way of paying back to all that I enjoy from the planet. And but a thought came to me some weeks back, because I do this back to back. And I mean, you clean up a place today, you return in a few days' time, it's already littered again. Truly, is recycling a sustainable solution?
Is the question for anyone specifically, or what?
Yeah, no, to
go
you,
ahead.
Carissa. Yes.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah, Jim. Sorry,
go ahead.
I mean, yeah, Jim, you wanted to say something? Yes, please.
Yeah, I think things like recycling, I think, are very important because they start to change mindset. But we really need to change behaviors. Well, we need to encourage people to change their own behaviors. We won't change anybody's. I know many things I've done in the past. We can take action and change things. I did land preservation projects for a long time. So we could do things politically, we could do things talking to people, we could protect large areas of land, but without education, so that people valued those things, we didn't get anywhere. And I run into that too. I go out every day. There's a big, beautiful reservoir here, and you can walk. And every day I clean it up. I go back to the same area a day or two later. There's trash again. We absolutely need to work on that. We need to have people understand you're not entitled to take your garbage and throw it on the ground. And that's a longer, harder process. But maybe in the long run, it's even more important. It's certainly equally important in my mind.
Great. Yeah. Monica, want to say something?
Yes. So I think it's important that people realize the consequences of litter and pollution. Like when you litter on our roadways and it flies into our waterways, that litter pollutes our waterways, and now the water is contaminated. People that don't have access to clean drinking water are now drinking that contaminated water, and the chemicals from the litter is leaching into our soil, into our crops. So it's just like microplastics are now inside fish and other aquatic life. So just knowing, like, I felt like people, they don't care because they don't know, but once they're educated, then they actually have a choice to make a great decision, which is reduce, recycle, reuse, properly dispose of your trash, because after all, it is your trash. So that's why, I personally, I know the chapter, we've done videos together, like we just try to educate people, on how to properly do these things, because not knowing is the first battle. But once you know, you can make an informed decision and actually properly recycle, start by washing off the particles of the product that you have and putting it in the recycling bin, dispose of your trash. And I always tell people, don't have a trash bag in your car, simply put it in the trunk. Like, I get it. You don't want to drive around with the trash in your car. I totally understand that. But at the end of the day, I always carry 2 trash bags, one for recyclable items and one for my trash. If at any reason I throw those out and I don't have extra, I have a shoebox in my trunk where I will place items until I come home or until I reach my destination. I can properly dispose of these items, because I know the dangers of littering and polluting. Our air quality and our water quality depends on our taking the right decision to actually properly dispose of these items. So,
thank you. Yes.
I've spent quite a lot of time in Washington lobbying politicians, and I ask them one question: why can't you pass a common sense law that says every container sold is recyclable? And how much would that cost? And it would cost about a penny per item. And I think people would be more than willing to pay a penny per item to have an item that is guaranteed recyclable, and then say every product that's made must have 50%, say, recyclable product in it. I mean, we need to have a use for this stuff. And we have 7 kinds of plastic in the United States, and only 3 of them are recyclable. I mean, why is that? It's just common sense. I mean, and none of them have had a good answer for that. They don't know how to answer it, because I mean, it's so easy. Just pass a law. Everything has to be recyclable, period. Give them a year to do it. They can do it. I mean, we have to be, and we can't be shy about asking for it. We got to be aggressive and say, we elected you to do this, do it.
Okay, thank you, Jim X. Can I come to Jim G now? In your own opinion, why do you think it's difficult for our lawmakers to make, like Jim X said, sensible, reasonable, legislation that protects the environment? Why do we have to fight our government to protect us?
Did you say me?
Yes, you. Jim,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Wow. That's another really deep, long question. I think in part we have allowed that sort of mentality to continue. We have not been good stewards of our political systems. People like Jim are there and talking, but he's few and far between. The majority of people don't do it. I mean, look at elections here in the US. Our turnout is horrible, absolutely horrible. And so how can we expect them to listen and do what we say when we're not really speaking? I think that's changing, and changing dramatically and worldwide. It has to continue. We need those changes. And if the politicians and the systems in place now cannot or will not do it, then we have to put in new ones. That's what we were told by our country in the beginning, that it was not only our right, but our responsibility to make the changes if we saw things were not working properly. And I think now that's critical, because now time is short. It used to be, heck, when I was younger, they would talk about, 50 years from now, 70 years from now, this or that's going to be a problem. Not now. Now we're seeing it. Now we're seeing the waters rise. Now we're seeing the fires burn. Now we're seeing the floods. Now we're seeing the earthquakes. We're being told by the planet that we better change fast. And that means we can't dedicate years and years to waiting for our political dinosaurs to shift. And I think we are seeing some new wave politicians. The old wave is putting up a huge battle, because they know they're on the way out. They know they're on the wrong side of history. Why they don't care, I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist. I would never delve into that. But a big part of it is, thank you, Jim, is money. I was trying to avoid that, but yeah, they're lining their pockets, all of them. This isn't about party. This isn't about liberal or conservative anymore. This is two diametrically opposed ways of living. What's more important, money or life? Money or my grandkids, your grandkids? For me, it's an easy answer. For some, apparently, it's not.
Thank you so much, Wilbur. Yeah, sorry, we're running out of time right now. But if I can give you each like a minute to leave a parting shot, what of advice would I like to pass on to people out there? Let me start with Carissa.
I think as much as like this might be cliched and kind of like overdone, I was in a few webinars and meetings yesterday just talking about like different self-care things and resiliency and not necessarily environmentalism. But the biggest takeaway was like to have hope for something and to have like that passion to keep going. And also, and I'm going to be in another meeting later this afternoon, like the state motto of Rhode Island is hope. So that's also something I remember being in certain meetings and like saying that, and people didn't really know that. And I just think that's another thing it has a deeper meaning for me as well. And just with everything going on, I feel like I have a newfound appreciation for that. And as hard as it may be, like if you're passionate about this and this is something you want to do, like have hope for that. And it's okay to be angry and get upset, but don't let that stop you, because we're all here for a reason. So
thank you. Machika?
Well, first, I'm going to speak in the elephant in the room. Don't be afraid to be the minority in the room. So I'm just going to put that out there. That's first and foremost. Educate yourself front and back, top, bottom, everything. Educate, 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 and that helps to build confidence in what you know. If you're passionate about it, don't be shy in learning as much as you can. Getting a mentor. Thank you, Malika. And getting all your support system. This is like the greatest team ever that I've had, because of the fact that you have so many people who are literally passionate, educate themselves in their passion. So it's so much easier to get things done. So I love doing this social media aspect because that is something I'm passionate about. And so I educate, I do the social media blasts, and I stick with people who are passionate, so it makes the job easier. So you don't have to do activism like Jim if that's not your style, but you can do it in other ways. There's so many different types of activism. So that's just kind of what I wanted to put out there, to be creative in your style of activism. Educate, and just make sure that you have mentors and a good support system.
Thank you. So I'll go
You're
to
welcome.
Jim X. How can we raise good ancestors? 1 minute.
I used to tell people, I wasn't a public speaker. And one of the reasons I did Climate Reality is because I believed in the cause, and I decided that I had to be a public speaker. And I've now given 80 climate presentations. But I used to tell people, take one step out of your comfort zone. Well, that's not good enough anymore. Now you got to take 2 steps out of your comfort zone. We cannot be meek anymore. We have to step forward. And I think everybody has to do that. So that's my mentoring.
You just spoken
Thanks,
to me.
Jim.
We cannot be meek anymore.
Step as far out as you can.
Wonderful. So Jim
Hint,
B,
hint.
wow, I'm gonna note that down. So Jim G, what do you have to share with us?
Okay, take 3 steps, 4 steps out of your comfort zone.
4 steps.
Yeah, that's good. 4's good.
That's
4
risky.
directions. It is risky. It is risky. And I've risked things, and I've been attacked, and I've been
I
thanked
want a
and
chopping
praised.
block.
Forget about that. Take as many steps out as you can. There are other people there who will help you. I work with people all the time so that they can feel a little more comfortable speaking or writing. A lot of people aren't comfortable writing because they say my writing's not too good. Just do it. I do things all the time I'm not comfortable with. All the time. It doesn't feel good, but when you get it done and you see something change, you feel great. And when someone says, wow, you did, I could tell you were nervous. I could tell you were upset. You did what had to be done. That's enough for me. Nobody has to be a superstar. We just need to let them see we're human too and share the message.
Thank you so much, Jim G. So Malika, what's your parting shot for us?
I would say be the change you want to see. I try to do 5 impossible things a day. So that may range from me speaking out to my local officials, which have actually listened. We were able to get the Newcastle County Coalition passed with less than 2 weeks, and it started with me making a phone call, sending an email, going in there, talking to the Newcastle County president, meeting with the attorney, and then creating it to tailor for our state. Afterwards, the very next meeting, it passed. And it's just, you have that dream of a better future, of a better life for not just yourself, but your family, the community, the world entirely. And it starts with that one dream. Don't be afraid to dream, and take your dream and actually put action behind it, because you can be the change you want to see globally. It just starts with having that dream, and support will come. Before these all-stars on the call with us right now, we had 5 members who were very dedicated, and we were just starting out, and now we have such a strong powerhouse. I am just so honored to have each and every one of you on this call, and everyone in our chapter at home watching, be a part of this movement, because we are doing great things. So don't be afraid. Like Mashika said, don't be afraid to be the minority in the room. Sometimes I go to meetings and I represent different areas. I represent suburban, urban areas, and I speak up about the issues that each area faces to make sure that we are getting the help, the funding, the laws passed that we need for each and every community equally. So never be afraid to let your voice be heard. And that's speaking from experience. I used to be really shy and quiet. I used to be afraid to speak. And now people can't shut me up, because what I'm saying has value, it's important, and it's the only way that we're going to be able to make a change.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for the honor you've given me. To have you, a super team here today, sharing your perspective, inspiring me also. And also, I've learned so much today. I've learned to take extra 4 steps. I've learned to stop being humble. We have to be active in restoring our planet and providing hope for the future. I've also learned from every one of you. Thank you so much. This is going out, it's going to the world. And I'm sure 1 or 2 people will listen, or even more, and be impacted by stories and be inspired. And people from different demography, from different geography, that there's hope. It's not too dire, but it could be dire if we do not act. But there's hope only if we act. And to act, we need to stop being timid or being humble in quotes, to taking step, leading, providing action that we know that will provide and build a world that is sustainable for us and also sustainable for people in the future. And thank you once again for coming on My Climate Story with Tosin. And I hope we will have the opportunity to collaborate together in the future, and we can also call upon you again to share on different areas as it relates to our planet. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Ciao, ciao, everyone. Arrivederci.
Thanks.
So thank you, viewers, for tuning in. We're coming up your way again next week, same time, with another climate champion. People are working in different areas to providing a world that we can be proud of.
Good.
So bye-bye, all.
Excellent.
Yeah.